Time now for the Week 3 Over-Under Challenge. We're chatting with Colin Cowherd as always. This weekly segment is presented by DraftKings. Colin, we went 7 out of 10 in Week 1, dropped a bit to 6 out of 10 in Week 2, but still a record of 13-7 so far on the young season. It's actually in the top 10% of all of our participants so far, so we are starting off hot for sure. We will try to keep to our winning ways here going in Week 3. As a reminder, our listeners can play along this season at FantasyPros.com/challenge. Colin will dive right into a few of the players in this week's challenge, starting as always with the quarterbacks. Derek Carr, stunningly, shockingly, jaw-droppingly in the top 3 in quarterback scoring on DraftKings so far this season. Clint Kubiak is changing things up both statistically and just the vibes for the Saints right now. 22.1 fantasy points per game on the year. Do you think he continues this against Philly, or will the Eagles be the defense to finally slow this thing down?
Well, I will say that this is the Shanahan offense, and it's working throughout the league. I do think they cool off a little. At some point, trees don't grow to the sky, as stock market pickers say. Like, you just don't play this well forever. But I don't think it's a mirage. I think they've added speed on the perimeter. I think Alvin Kamara is off to a great start and has been a great back when used properly. This is a coordinator story. Derek Carr is comfortable and protected. I think he remains. And does anybody really like Philadelphia's defense here? They're on a short week. That Atlanta O-line is really physical. Eagles could be a little bit beat up. It's like when you play the Niners or the Lions with great O-lines, or the Cowboys in their prime with great O-lines. You're a little beat up in the front seven. I think they'll cool off a little. I think it's a very, very close game and lower scoring than we're getting used to with the Saints. But I don't think this is a mirage. I think between Kamara, the protection, and Clint Kubiak, it's a real team and a real story.
You mentioned folks not really believing in the Eagles defense. The lasting memory we have of the Eagles defense right now is that Monday night finish. So
that last drive was a layup drill for Kirk Cousins. It was just 7-on-7 down the field.
Yeah, 100%. So we'll see if the Saints keep this up. Another quarterback we wanted to hit on, Lamar Jackson at Dallas. He's up at 23.3 fantasy points per game so far on DraftKings. A bit down in Week 2, but still number 2 across the first 2 weeks of the season, behind only Baker Mayfield, actually. As a Ravens fan, personally, I'm a bit worried about what Micah Parsons is about to do to this offensive line. What do you expect out of Lamar in this one?
Well, I believe they lead the NFL in yards. They're a toe away from beating Kansas City and Arrowhead. This is a go-either-way game. I like Baltimore because I like Lamar in big spots. If you take out the Kansas City Chiefs, he has a 19-14 record against playoff teams in his career. Now, that includes the Chiefs. So if you take the Chiefs out, it's obviously much better. Dak is not good against playoff teams in his career. So I like Baltimore in this game. I think I'd be a little concerned. It would probably be a stay-away game for me. I've always had this theory that when a talented team at home is humiliated, they tend to really play well the next week. That was an embarrassing loss for the Cowboys. I think I would stay away from Lamar this week. There'll be spots throughout the year where he can be better serviced or better used. I think I'd stay away this week with Lamar. I worry, too, about Micah Parsons and that defense rising up a little.
Let's get to the running backs. You already kind of alluded to him a little when we were talking about Derek Carr. Alvin Kamara is in this week's challenge as well, obviously also going up against the Eagles. He's up at 34.5 fantasy points per game. Now, obviously, a lot of that is carried by his ridiculous explosion in Week 2, but it's just been a very excellent start to the season. He looks really good to the eye test, in my opinion, as well. He's number 1 fantasy running back on DraftKings by a mile, nearly 10 points per game higher than anybody else. We already talked about Derek Carr. Do you think the running game continues against the Eagles?
No, because I will say that this is where I think the Saints slow down. So the Eagles back end, you have to make choices against the Saints, right? You have to pick something to stop in Shanahan's offense. And I think if I was Philadelphia on a short week, I would pick stopping Alvin Kamara. I'd say, let Derek Carr beat me over the top. I'll take my chances. I think Philadelphia's entire game plan is, we have got to get our arms around Alvin Kamara. We do not believe Derek Carr is going to win a shootout against us in our pass rush. So again, this is a bit of a sell in this spot. I love Alvin. But when you play these diverse offenses and they have all their pieces, you have to make choices. If you were the defensive coordinator for the Eagles, Alvin Kamara is a great player. Derek Carr is having a great year, but is a okay player. I think Kamara comes back down to earth this week. I like the Saints to win, but I think the offense comes back down to earth.
Josh Jacobs is another running back in this week's challenge going up against the Titans. Obviously, the Packers, pulled out a win despite having Malik Willis starting at quarterback. Did you see anything out of this offense that makes you think we're going to see, anything different from Jacobs? Or is this going to be just another, assuming it's Malik Willis, I guess they're still talking about, as of the time of this recording, Jordan Love may be playing, but do you expect really big usage from Jacobs again?
I don't. I see usage, but not production. Tennessee's defense is really good. It's a really, really good defense. And with Jordan Love playing, I believe he practiced this week. They're going to limit his exposure. They're going to run the football. I don't know if they're going to have a lot of success. So I think Green Bay, they've got tremendous offensive weapons. But this is a do we play him or not decision, right? And my guess is if it's Willis playing, they're going to run a lot of Willis. They're not going to make him throw 35 times. If Jordan Love plays, they don't want to expose him. So my takeaway is, because Tennessee's got a real pass rush, you don't want to put Jordan Love, who's 70%, up against that Tennessee pass rush. I think they're going to give a lot of carries to Josh Jacobs. I question how effective he'll be. I feel like a downer this week. I think offenses, I think there's going to be week 3s, 4, and 5 are a little bit of true serum. I think this has been a weird year where we have some surprises. I think some of these red hot teams come back down to earth. I think Jacobs will get a lot of carries. I question the success.
You've bit a bit of a downer, in the last couple of games. I'm curious if you will be for this next matchup, James Conner against the Lions. I love this Cardinals-Lions game. I am so excited to watch up. It is my favorite matchup of the week. James Conner has over 20 fantasy points per game on DraftKings this season. They do project Detroit to be the number 1 rushing defense for week 3. What do you think Conner can do against them?
I think he's going to succeed. I think Marvin Harrison having such a good game scares Detroit because McBride's an exceptional tight end. So again, when you face Arizona, you have to make choices. You're going to play spy defense with Kyler Murray. Detroit may roll over coverage with Harrison. You have to take McBride seriously. And these weapons aren't going away. I think Connor's going to have a very big year. I think he's an excellent player. So I think Arizona, I think when you have a generationally elusive quarterback with a top tight end, with an emerging star at wide receiver, it's made for running backs to have good seasons. I think Connor is going to have a Pro Bowl level season.
On the other side, we'll go to the wide receivers here. On the other side of this matchup, Amon-Ra St. Brown against the Cardinals. St. Brown just 15 fantasy points per game so far this season, outside the top 20, surprisingly, from where he was being drafted. What do you expect from him on the other side of this one?
I think he has a big game. You're not going to hold down Arizona. Detroit's not going to keep Arizona to 14 points. So Detroit's going to have to score. Plus, when you're on the road against an Arizona, they play pretty well at home. Even if you get a lead, you're going to keep the foot on the pedal. Also, Ben Johnson has not had a couple of great weeks. So Detroit, even though Detroit beat the Rams, I think Detroit feels like they've played really weak football. I think Detroit's going to come in here with their hair on fire a little bit, and they want to reestablish their offensive identity. I mean, Hutchinson was great last week. That's been established. He's now like all-world Myles Garrett level, TJ Watt level. I think this game feels like 33-30. I think it's a really incredibly entertaining game, and I think most of the skilled people in this game are going to play well.
Those are our favorite picks for week 3. We'll try and keep the good times rolling, Colin. Remember, everybody can play fantasypros.com/challenge. Thanks again for joining, as always.